You don't matter. It's not about just Democrat. It's about the elites in power. Joe Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden. Right now, this is going on. There's a lot going on with oil, with energy. This is one of the things that affects you most, right? Yep. Americans at the pump. That's a big part of what determines elections, certainly midterms. They really are trying to pivot away from that and make it about abortion, as you just saw from Eric banging Chinese spies as well. That being said, they've had the media carry their water and try and propagate these myths out there. And I know a lot of you have asked how to refute these. So comment below if this is something that you've heard, that you've had to deal with, and if it's helpful. I try and pick these topics based on what is helpful to you, and we love to hear what it is that you would like us to address next. Because if we're not helping you, then there's no reason to really do this. So here's the just kind of the briefers. The OPEC Plus.
I hate calling it. It's
OPEC.
Producing. Okay, whatever.
What do you want to call it?
I just don't like the plus. Everything's plus. Disney plus, Apple plus,
LGBTQ
I don't want to say other pluses. Yes, thank you very much. Can you just say OPEC and we'll be like, yeah, we understand there's more.
I don't even like pluses on my batteries.
Nope.
Well, I like them both negative.
Well, that's...
My house is very dark.
Unsustainable.
That'll one work.
So the OPEC members, they just unanimously approved a plan to reduce oil production by 2 million barrels per day. And what does that do? Of course, that's going to assure that prices are likely going to go up. Okay.
Wait.
OPEC made the decision in spite of Biden's request that they postpone the cut specifically until after the midterms. We talked about that yesterday. It's confirmed, right? Because Biden does not care about you. He just says, let's just punt it till after midterms. So we talked about that yesterday. Go and watch that segment. Here's the thing. This problem right now that you're dealing with at the pump, it's gas prices. It's one of the few issues where presidents can have a direct impact, right? There is sometimes a rubber band effect and the policies don't really come into play, or I should say the net effect of the policies for a couple of years. Gas prices, especially in an industry that is so subject to, forgive the redundancy as far as this phrase sounds, speculators. It's subject to speculators. Yeah, subject to speculators. That works
fine.
Subject to speculators, where really just one executive order or honestly one press conference can change the industry because people are hopeful that they're going to drill, and that in essence creates some kind of speculation that there will be more reserves that will be available. It's very volatile because it is based largely on hearsay. And the president can change the environment in which the oil, the fossil fuel industry, all energy industry operates. So
those guys are betting on the future price of oil.
Exactly.
And the president understands every time he comes out, just like when the Fed comes out and kind of hints that they may raise interest rates, it affects the markets.
Exactly.
Right? This is the same thing for the president affecting gas prices.
So let's look at how this is exactly a problem from former Vice President Joe Biden and the lies that you've been told and how easy they are to debunk. So let's go back in time really quickly. Let's go to then. During the final presidential debate, 2020, I believe it was the final debate, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to it. Could have been one of the 19. Former Vice President Biden, he said, and when I say in no uncertain terms, just I ask that you say, well, hold on a second, be skeptical of me, and then listen to him say it word for word. He said he was going to shut down the fossil fuel industry. 2020.
I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal.
That's a big statement.
Well, if you let me finish the
From
statement.
a big man.
Because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies.
And I think we also have that clip of him talking to someone on the campaign trail, remember, saying, yes, I'm going to put an end to the fossil fuel industry. So he reiterated it several times. So that's him back then.
Just to be clear.
Oh, that's a big statement. Don't you love that?
I know.
Oh, that's a big statement. That's a big statement. That's really big.
Wow.
It's pollution. So where are you going to get oil from? Oh, countries that really don't care about pollution at all.
Yeah.
Nailed it, because that brings us to now. Thanks for the layup, Dave. Former Vice President is literally threatening Saudi Arabia for, what? Cutting oil production.
What's your reaction to the OPEC Plus?
Disappointment, and we're looking at what alternatives we may have. There's a lot of alternatives. We haven't made up our mind yet. Sure. And I am in the process when this House and Senate gets back. They're going to have to. There's going to be some consequences for what they've done with Russia.
What kind of consequences? Menendez says suspend all arms sales. Is that something you'd consider?
I'm not going to get into what I'd consider and what I have in mind, but there will be consequences.
I'll tell you what he has in mind.
Ice cream.
That's it.
He answers every question like a movie cop that doesn't want to tell you there's a serial killer on the loose.
Right, exactly.
Where he's just like, no, look, we don't have any information at this time. We can neither confirm nor deny that's happening.
Lock your windows and stay inside. Why? I can't tell you that. There's no reason to be alarmed.
Yes, there's nothing to see here. No trouble at all.
No trouble at all.
It's exactly when you should panic.
What about Venezuela? He's just like, I've never even heard of it.
Well, let's think about this for a second. He's mad now. He wanted to transition away from fossil fuels. Now he's mad that Saudi Arabia is cutting oil production, right? And we're talking about alternatives. So right away, we already know an alternative to American oil production was Saudi Arabia.
Right.
We would never need, if we just actually accessed our own energy. Maybe it's Venezuela. You think they have the same environmental standards that we do here in the United States, folks? What about China and coal? We can be this is something we don't think about. We can be a net exporter of energy. What about these other countries that are using dirtier forms of energy, like China with coal, other countries that are extracting oil, basically using archaic methods? We could help them improve their drilling practices, their energy practices, to make them more eco-friendly. But we can't do it because we're dependent on their energy to get to us. So this is also just proof positive. It's about the midterms. He does not care about you, the United States of America. He wants to appeal to his base in a general. Say, I'm going to shut down the fossil fuel industry. He knows full well that'll hurt you. Then going into the midterms, well, let me alleviate the pain for the average American who I don't care about any other time of the year. Punt it until after the midterms, and then we'll come right back to square one. You don't matter. It's not about just Democrat. It's about the elites in power. They know that it'll affect you after the midterms. Now, let's get into Biden he wants you to believe that he improved the oil industry in America. Even though he said he would transition away from him, now he wants to take credit for oil production. Have you seen this?
Right.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah. This is one of the biggest lies that the White House has spun.
Yes. And by
That's saying something.
By White House, we mean every major press outlet.
Yes.
So this is something that you've requested from me quite a bit. So here's the claim that you see going on out there, that gas and oil in the United States, right, and the permits specifically, that they've actually increased under Biden. Because if you say, well, oil prices are higher, why don't we access our own oil? They say, actually, Biden's done more for oil and gas than any other president, so that's a strong... No, hold on a second. They're lying. But here's according to Yahoo. The federal government has been issuing oil and gas drilling permits more willingly than it did during President Donald Trump's first 3 years in office. That's key. First 3 years. And it could be issuing even more if the oil and gas industry weren't leaving many current leases undeveloped. Okay, so they're saying more under Biden. He's actually done more than Donald Trump. Here's the truth. The permits issued in 2021 were for leases that were sold mostly, almost entirely under Donald Trump.
Oh.
And in 2022, the new permits plummeted. So in other words, he was enjoying an effect from Donald Trump that he was publicly. You can go back to that debate. He was attacking Donald Trump for those leases that created the bump for him, which he now is claiming credit for. So production, just to give you an idea, for oil, it plummeted by 55% from 2021 to 2022. The numbers, 2021, 3,800, 2022, 1,700. So he comes into office, there are all these leases, they've increased under Donald Trump, they were permitted under Donald Trump, takes advantage of them, then cuts them, but he's taking credit for that first year.
That's brilliant.
Now, let me undergird this a little bit. Here's another truth, in case you don't believe what I'm telling you. All of the references are available at loudestrcreditor.com. Trump's highest average month, the highest sort of average of the monthly permits, I should say, in 2020, it was higher than Biden's 2021 average. So you had a spike. You look at the trend, okay, 2020, monthly average 452. We're talking about these permits. 2021, 333. And then, of course, it went down dramatically after that. So it was a ramp up. There was a benefit from the ramp up, and then Biden screwed it up, and they want to take credit for that first year of ramp up while it was tapering down.
Well, and the big thing here is look at the policies from these administrations and the effects that those policies have. Under Joe Biden, if he has his way, this trend continues. Right. The trend after Trump continues, and he can no longer take credit for anything, but he's going to transition us. Don't worry, because everything's going to run on electricity, which is powered by coal, because wind and solar cannot lift that weight. And
I thought electricity was powered by other electricity.
Yes. No. Teslas should say coal powered on the back of them. You are all living a lie.
Are you saying that the electric car isn't charged by electricity?
No.
I just assumed that electricity came from electricity.
What?
Yeah.
But it comes from something that produces electricity.
What about the key kite?
All sunshine and farts.
I just thought it was a bunch of Spencer's plasma balls in a warehouse.
I thought it ran on Elon Musk's nightmares.
Yep.
Yeah, but under
Because
Donald
they're
Trump,
very high-powered.
Your guess is as good as mine. We don't know. I guess we'll never solve the mystery of where electricity comes from. Go ahead, Gerald.
under Donald Trump, if he was in a second term right now, we wouldn't care what Russia was doing.
Nope.
We wouldn't care at all. It would have
would
zero
need
effect
to.
on us to be like, oh, Russia, you guys want to act up over there? OPEC, you guys want to cut? I have no shites left to give because we just produce all of our own stuff here. So, you can buy ours if you want.
Just like you just did with former Vice President Joe Biden, that debate, like, oh, that's a big statement.
Yeah.
That would be the exact same approach if Putin says, we're going to cut off supply of oil. Oh, that's a big statement. Big moves, Russia. I'm shaking in my boots. I'm literally shaking. And when I say literally, I mean that I'm frankly not shaking.
And he's like,
As
charge.
he's landing on the front lawn
Yes.
to go inside, he's like, oh, it's that guy again. I don't want.
Yes.
He makes me eat hamburgers at the long table.
And Diet
He has an
Coke.
Inspector Gadget helicopter pad. Da-da-da-da-da, Inspector me. Here I come to kick your ass. All right.
Yeah, we didn't worry about Putin, remember?
No, we didn't. But
Oh,
people
hey,
thought he
look
was
at this. Right now, CNN.
What?
Biden to release another 15 million barrels from strategic reserve. I think we had 12 million yesterday, the day before, 14 million, something like that. So we're just dipping back.
Admonish us. We were
Yeah.
wrong. We were
It's a
right, but
second
now
one.
we're wrong.
It's a second one. I think it's on top of it.
Yeah, I know, but it's either way. I just want to cut this off at the pass because tomorrow we'll be wrong because he'll release more oil.
That's
like
fair.
he's Tyra Banks handing out Vaseline bottles.
This was a double admonish. That's
It's times two admonish.
well, no, I mean,
Hey, do any of you remember ever CNN praising Donald Trump for opening up oil leases? Ever? Let alone the last election. Can you remember any instance where CNN focused on gas prices or focused on how much more access we had to our own energy under Donald Trump? Was that ever a topic, let alone right now, the main headline on CNN? In case you didn't actually, but go ahead and bring it up there, Tillman. In case you didn't believe that CNN was carrying the water, so was ABC, NBC, CBS for this administration, you would never see that because oil bad. Donald Trump in the pockets of oil.
yeah. Well, and right now they're saying that Joe Biden is reducing the price of gas. And it's like, oh, well, that's great. It's actually coming down. It's still incredibly high.
Right.
Don't play the game that Joe Biden wants you to play on inflation where he's like, it only went up 0.2%.
It's like Kohl's, where they trick suburban white bitches by marking something $100 up
Yes.
to $300 and then giving you 40% off.
It's true.
It's $60 to fill up a basic sedan.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
Well, it could be a good thing.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're on the oil side of it.
Exactly. I have a diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean I take calls from Putin on oil and Bitcoin. Why aren't you in Ethereum? Now, hit the like button right here as we go through another myth, because this is important. You see it right now in real time. Don't you just love it when we're rebutting thing, and then they try and
CNN
do it
does,
during real
yeah.
time? Here's another claim that they're making, not just as it relates to leases, but, and you're seeing this right now, Joe Biden is actually, former Vice President Biden is producing more oil than any modern presidents previously, including President Trump.
Some, I know, have made the claim that this administration is in the way of domestic production.
Because you are.
But the
that
numbers
Granholm?
here are inarguable. We are now at close to record levels of oil production here in the U.S., averaging now 12 million barrels a day. Under this president, the country is producing more oil on average than it did during the Bush, Obama, or Trump administrations.
Okay. So here's the truth. Okay. In 2020, oil production reached an all-time high of more than 13 million barrels per day under Donald Trump.
Well, if we can make cars run on garbage from all the stuff she had shipped over from Canada and buried in Michigan, we're in luck.
Yep. But that's not kind of high. All-time high. The average the press secretary is trying to talk about is from, again, former Vice President Biden's what? First year and a half in office. So if you're comparing the averages of the first year and a half of Biden, okay, Donald Trump comes in. Let me just explain this to you really quickly. Okay, you have this overlap. Donald Trump comes in. We had 8 years of Barack Obama / former Vice President Joe Biden. It was very anti-oil, was very anti-energy. Drilling went down. Okay, Donald Trump comes in, reverses that, takes a little while to ramp up. You look at his last 2-3 years, right? The first year, he just had to actually put some policy into place. Boom, we hit all-time highs. Then reverse it. Former Vice President Joe Biden comes in. He's benefiting from the policies of Donald Trump and then plummets it. So they're taking a year and a half average of Biden versus the 4 years of Donald Trump. Let's look at the total, at the 4-year total. As a matter of fact, let's just compare the second half of Biden's presidency. to the second half of Trump. They deliberately avoid and this is something that I hope that you guys do. And you hear me doing this too when I work with our researchers. I go, give me an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
So when I give you a comparison, I try and say there's X% increase versus X% decrease. Or there's a 4 times increase in the likelihood versus a 2 times less like. I try and make sure that you see a percentage and a percentage, or a multiple and a multiple, or a fraction and a fraction, so it's consistent, because it's very, very easy to trick people. And when you say we're comparing 4 years of Donald Trump, including the first year where there was an effect from Barack Obama, to 1.5 years of Biden, that's how you come up with a lie. Something completely irrefutable. We reached an all-time high period under Donald Trump as far as oil being produced under his presidency of all time.
Yeah. And by the way, just again, I want to go back to this. It's his policies. Once they take effect, that's the question that every reporter should be asking. Okay, I understand what you're saying right now. This is a carryover from the past administration. Your policies are actually cutting this. We have graphs, we have charts. Everything is going down and to the right. That's a bad sign. Where will we be in 2 years?
Right.
Because of your policies. Don't tell me what Donald Trump's policies have produced in your administration. You're trying to do something different. You said it. You wanted to do something different than Donald Trump. Where will that put us?
Well, yeah.
Has it ever been this level of blame the previous guy?
Well, in this case, he's trying to blame the previous guy for everything wrong and take credit for the previous guy.
And take credit for it, too.
But
That's what I mean. Like, has this ever
you know what? It's always been going on. This is why I say there was never real journalism.
Yeah.
Go back and look the first couple years of Ronald Reagan after dealing with the disaster that was Jimmy Carter.
Oh, man.
Where people would try and blame him for inflation. People would try and blame him for, your dollar purchasing power being significantly lower. Then look at the totality of his presidency. He had to come in and change a lot. Now, it's not like Barack Obama, who in years 7 and 8 was still blaming George W. Bush while taking credit. You could go back and read articles from the media blaming Ronald Reagan within the first few months that he came into office of the issues that were clearly set by Jimmy Carter. That's what they're doing here, only trying to take credit for the tail end of Donald Trump. Again, this is one thing. It's very easy to trick you. I ask that you do this next time you vote. You go, okay, 8 years of Barack Obama, okay, really 3 years of Donald Trump. Let's admit the 4th year was kind of a wash because of the pandemic and the planned lockdowns therein to try and win the election. But you have 8, 4, and you're going to have 4. 8, 4, and 4. One of these things is not like the other. You can never again claim that you didn't have contrast, that you didn't have an example. Our generation didn't have that. The closest we had was George W. Bush, who was never a conservative. He was a big government Republican. We all know that. I don't think he's a bad man. I don't think he was a great president. You now have it. Remember this. Let's go down to another claim that former Vice President Joe Biden's administration made, that shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline didn't affect oil prices. This is another thing they want to tell you. We're making more oil. We have more leases than ever. And it's a bullshit. It's a red herring that the Keystone XL pipeline has anything to do with oil prices. Okay, here's the truth. All references available at loudestcutter.com. The pipeline could have delivered 830,000 barrels of crude per day by 2023. More supply almost always results in lower costs in a free market. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, oh, most of that was actually just crude and it was Canada, or it was going to, okay, hold on a second. Didn't we just yesterday hear former Vice President Joe Biden talking about the global economy and inflation across the board?
Yeah.
Right? So even if that's the case, and it's not entirely the case, we would benefit from it directly. Still, that would be better. If it's better for the rest of the world, then it's better for the United States of America. You're the one who thrust us into a global economy as it relates to oil.
Yeah. But by the way, if you can blame OPEC for cutting supply,
right,
and that's a bad thing, and it's going to make oil prices go up and gas prices go up, wouldn't increasing supply be a good thing and make oil prices go down and gas prices go down?
Right.
You can't have it both ways.
Most of that's going to be Canada. And hold on a second. You're talking about global supply.
Yes.
Let me again read that number to you. 830,000 barrels of crude oil per day.
We would care about 50% less about OPEC's decision if this pipeline was up and running by next year.
Easily.
And keep in mind, again, let's compare that with the all-time high, 13 million barrels of oil per day right under Donald Trump. That's actually, I know it doesn't sound like a ton, but guess what? With 830,000, if you had that on, that still is significant. That's not nothing. Certainly on a global scale. That is a significant amount of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't remember exactly what the number was, but I think it's somewhere between 15 and 20 million barrels per day that the United States uses in oil consumption.
Right.
So this is a big deal, right? When Joe Biden releases 15 million barrels or 14 million barrels, whatever the number is today, tomorrow, when we get admonished again, that doesn't even cover a day, folks.
Right. So we have this overall effect of not only would opening the Keystone XL, and by the way, sometimes people get Keystone. Don't be tripped up by this Keystone versus Keystone XL. Different. Keystone already exists. I won't get super nerdy on that. We'll do that another day. I just don't want you to get tripped up. Make sure you use the term Keystone XL. Okay. Not only would it increase the supply, which would benefit everybody, but again, going back to how the oil industry works, which this administration admits by simply threatening Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Again, we're dealing with speculators. Canceling the pipeline of Keystone XL when you have businesses who are looking at many years before they'll ever turn a profit. This signals to energy companies do not invest. Also, the reason that energy companies might not invest, they've sort of in a soft way been signaled to not invest when Joe Biden says, I'll shut you down, so you better not invest.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I know there's nuance. You kind of have to read between the lines.
It's not direct.
Yeah. Now, again, if you say, well, hold on a second, it's not that much, but didn't allow Keystone. Let's say Keystone XL is all for Canada. It only benefits Canada. All right? Okay, let's go with that. Then why would he allow Nord Stream 2? We're talking about something that goes through where?
Russia to Germany?
The Baltic regions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes to the
so, no, not here in North America, but sure, we'll sign off on Nord Stream 2. Again, you do have to ask yourself, is it idiocy or when every single policy that is enacted by this president harms the American people while assisting foreign, sometimes adversaries, but certainly people who don't have American best interests at heart and certainly should not be more important to the president than the American people. Oh, no, wait, that's nationalism. You're racist. If I say, hey, Keystone XL, hey, we should allow all of our onshore drilling. We should allow all of our drilling here. We should allow drilling in Alaska. We should allow ourselves fracking. But I don't think we should have anything to do with Nord Stream 2. No. That's nationalism. That's racist.
Don't worry, they'll probably support blowing it up at some point in the future if we haven't already.
Yes.
By the way, U.S. oil consumption, it's a little bit higher even. Daily oil consumption is 19.89 million barrels.
I knew it was somewhere around that number, but I didn't want to get admonished.
That's insane.
And 14 of those barrels are just Lizzo's servants as they clean her with a strigil.
She's like that guy in Dune. That's how she recharges every day.
I said grapeseed oil, mother. That's avocado. I'm sorry.
That's a lot of avocado.
We use 19 billion or million?
Million.
Okay, I was going to say billion seems like a lot.
That does seem like a lot.
That would seem like too much.
But it's so hard now because everything's just a rounding error. Billion, trillion, it's all trillion these days, folks.
Wow.
Here's another
So
claim
worthless.
that they'll make, that Biden is helping all of us by releasing 15 million barrels from the strategic reserves. Okay, here's the truth. Right now, because of where we are, 15 million barrels is not enough because of how much we've reduced our capacity.
Yeah.
Biden's entire sell-off of 160 million barrels from the reserve has changed the price of gas by about 40 cents.
And that's insane.
That's a quarter of the reserve, by the way. So
Shouldn't the reserve also be more important to us than you screwing up as president?
Yes, you would think so.
Yeah, because it's for when we
Yes.
really need oil.
Like really badly need oil. By the way, so that was 40 cents on his entire sell-off?
Yeah.
You understand that for every $10 the price of oil goes up per barrel, that's a 24% or 24-cent increase at the pump. So basically what OPEC just did is going to raise the price, they estimate, by about $11-12, which cuts into everything that he just did. Basically, it's a 16-cent difference. So get ready for gas prices to go right back up. It didn't do anything except deplete our reserves, Joe.
Right.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Couldn't possibly be necessary.
It's the difference of long-term policy designed to strengthen the American people, the American energy, period, American energy independence versus short-term, as we know on the record, short-term political gain before midterms. This is not someone who wants us to be energy independent. They don't. They've said so. You may not like President Trump. And by the way, the left who doesn't like President Trump, they would say, we hate President Trump because, yes, sure, he's brought down the price of gas, but it's because look at all of the increase in drilling. Look at it's going to destroy our environment. Now these same people want you to praise Joe Biden, who just wants to take it down enough before the midterms so that he can screw you afterward. The same reason that people have criticized Donald Trump is the same reason that gas prices are through the roof, and it's the same reason that we might enter into a global conflict the scale of World War III. You understand this, right? If you rely on I don't understand. Can someone explain this to me? Can you maybe comment below? Maybe this is lost on me because it's one of those things like charter schools where I am not able to find an answer. The left says, and by the way, not a fan of Putin, just to be clear, Russia, evil, shitty, There is no nuance whatsoever. We should be involved. We need to go to where Russia is awful, bad. Okay. And we should be reliant on them for oil. You can't say Russia bad and then say, but we have way more oil than Russia. Saudi Arabia, terrible, right? Michael Moore. 9/11, terrorists, right? Okay, good. Shut down our oil production. There's no one out there right now. None of these critics, by the way, who don't like the fossil fuel industry, not one of them will argue that we right now could transfer to green energy, meaning solar, wind. None of them. It can't be done. So, okay, Russia bad. Then you need to follow the policy of making sure that we are not dependent on bad people. I don't know how these positions, I don't know how they're reconcilable.
I guess if you've just gone down on your crack dealer, it's more about getting the crack than really liking the dealer. There's really no other way I can put that.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And my point is, we should have our own crack house.
But we have our own crack house.
It should look like, what was that show, Union Jack?
Yeah.
All the ladies without the tops on?
That's right.
Like, check under Putin's tit. He's got some crude underneath there.
Yeah, we got a whole factory underground, and we're just letting it sit there.
Just a bunch of naked Russians.
Yep. Check under them skirts.
Or The Wire, whatever
show where
they're all naked. American Gangster.
New Jack City.
That's right, New Jack. I think I said Union
American. American Gangster has it as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
The point is, if you make drugs,
Frank Lucas heroin.
If you make drugs, you do it naked. If you're a team player.
Exactly.
Now here's another truth.
Gas. Don't be sneaking barrels out under them titties. Come
on. Are you Donkey Kong?
Lizzo.
Here's another truth. The strategic reserve is supposed to be what? For wartime. It's like an emergency food supply. It's for emergencies.
By George.
This is a self-induced wound, a self-inflicted wound. We do not need to be dipping into our strategic reserves. We certainly wouldn't if we continued the policy of Donald Trump, and every day was an all-time record high pumping of oil. So, by taking the oil from the reserves, Biden is threatening our national security. Well, the strategic reserve is now at its lowest since 1984. So let me recap this for you as people come to you and say, there's more leases right now under Joe Biden than ever. Well, okay, that's complete and total horseshit. It was for the first year and a half. We just went into why. There's been more oil production under Joe Biden than any other president. Well, that's complete horseshit. That's because during, again, the first year and a half, it was a result of President Donald Trump, and then it plummeted. Well, hold on a second. The Keystone pipeline wouldn't make any difference. Keystone XL pipeline, so we don't need to do that. Okay, great. I'm glad that you're happy for us to be dependent on Russia with this administration improving the Nord Stream pipeline. Oh, and I hope that you're happy that we have now tapped into our energy reserves to the lowest level since 1984, which again puts us in a more compromised position so that someone might be able to take advantage of us. Like who? I don't know. Hint, someone Eric Swalwell might want to bang.
Any spy from any country?
Yes.
Let me go back to one of the clips that we said. I'm not going to have him play it, but Joe Biden, not only has he done all of that, right, and that's bad enough. That's enough to destroy the American economy or hurt every single person out there who goes to the gas pump, all of us. He said Saudi Arabia is going to face consequences because of how they've handled Russia. Mm-hmm. He basically is saying it's not because of their cut of oil production. It's not because of what OPEC has done. American people, you hate Russia, right? Well, Saudi Arabia, they're friends with Russia. That's why they did this. You know who's not complaining about this right now? Ukraine. The people that would be most affected by Saudi Arabia partnering up with Russia. They are not partnering up with Russia to do this. I understand that Russia is part of OPEC Plus, but the president is trying to frame this as now we have a common enemy.
Right.
The enemy of our friend over here, right? They're hurting Ukraine, who we want to help by supporting Russia.
Right.
That's dangerous rhetoric for an election.
And I guess it doesn't work on me because I don't like anyone.
Well, I don't like any of them either.
I don't like Saudi. I don't like Saudi Arabia. I don't like Russia, and I don't like Ukraine.
The left are the war hawks now. I have no idea what's happened to society in the United States. They're the ones saying that we should be going to war, and now Donald Trump is tying that in. Remember,
war for oil. Can I? Pardon my language.
You can say, kids.
I'm sorry. The fuck is Code Pink? Remember when you were out there protesting the White House the second we went into Afghanistan?
Of course, yeah. I was gonna say,
where are you right now?
Time complaining that it was a war for oil when we had oil here. Remember?
Yeah.
And you were advocating for drilling in Alaska or Antarctica or whichever one of those places
everywhere.
Yeah. I advocate drilling everywhere. Like, but Alaska's so beautiful. It won't be when Skynet falls and Russia decides to turn it into a nuclear wasteland.
Yes.
Like, but if you fix it, we can't complain.
Yes.
It's unbelievable to me. That's incredibly dangerous.
It's the Boynton
sloppy
Beach
rhetoric.
Club. Just a bunch of old ladies.
It really is. Good poll.
What happens when you make ice the temperature of the sun? Let's see.
Yeah, exactly.
There.
Yeah, what happens when Russia turns all of the country into Superman's dad's bachelor pad?
Yeah, that's gonna really feel like pollution when there's a warhead that goes.
This is quite literally Mount trying to convince all of you that we need to engage in an international conflict for oil. And by the way, it didn't pass the sniff test when we were talking about Iraq and oil. Sure, I understand no bid contracts, but again, if you understand what happened with Desert Storm, do you know what a war for oil actually looks like? If you're talking about actually just siphoning oil from a country, it's surround the oil fields, surround the oil reserves, bring in air support, don't let anyone take the oil. You don't pack up your stuff and leave.
Yeah.
In this case, we're actually right now, you can see through the legislative process, approving international, or at least supporting international reserves of oil while shutting down our own and saying, oh, hold on a second, the reason that we should hate all of these people is because Russia, oil, Saudi Arabia, oil, we might have to enter into a war. Why? For oil. Yeah, but don't we have a whole lot of that? I don't know anything about that. It's all about Saudi and Russian oil, kids. You're an asshole, sir.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.